You are listening to continuing coverage of the trial of Chad Daybell from True Crime Today and the Hidden Killers podcast. Let's go back to the courtroom.
All right, the court will note the jurors are returned to the courtroom at this time. We appreciate your patience as we work through an evidentiary matter. We do have Ms. Murray on the stand. I'll remind you, you're still under oath for your testimony. On direct examination from the defense, Mr. Pryor, if you'd like to continue, you may.
I just want to advise you that you can't tell me what someone said and repeat what someone said, but you can answer my questions without telling me what the person actually said to you. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. So it's your understanding that at the Knott's Berry Farm trip, Lori Vallow came from another direction. Is that correct?
Yes.
She didn't participate in the travel plans with you to California. Is that correct?
Yes.
At any time, without telling me what she said, was the topic of the location of the children discussed with her?
Yes.
Okay. At any time, did you and your father ever discuss his knowledge of where the children might be?
Yes.
Okay. What do you understand your father's knowledge of where the children were located during the time that investigators were looking for them?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
Overruled.
Go ahead.
From my understanding, and from, I was told that the children were in a safe place.
Okay. And was that understanding through your discussions with your dad?
Yes.
At any time, did your dad actually know where that safe place was with your discussions?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay. The only way she'd know this is based on hearsay and calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Okay. At any time, did your father ever tell you where he might think the children might be?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
Judge, I'm not asking for an answer. I'm asking whether there was a discussion regarding that subject.
May I have a quick sidebar with counsel? All right, thank you, counsel. The court reviewed that previous ruling. Objection to hearsay. The court is going to sustain the objection.
So at some point, is it fair to say that you had a discussion or multiple discussions with your dad about where the children might or might not be?
Yes.
I want to go to the issue of the planning of your mother's service. Were you present at the time for the planning of that service?
Yes.
Who was present at that time?
When we first talked about choosing a day for the funeral, we were meeting with the mortician, and
Who was that?
it was from he was from Flam Funeral Home. I don't recall his name.
Okay.
And
Were you given a couple of options as to when to have the service?
yes,
And what were those days?
they gave us the choice of Tuesday and Saturday. There were other customers that the funeral home was helping, and those were the only days that they were available to have her ready by.
Okay, so I want to clarify something. Your mother passed on that Friday, Saturday.
Yes.
You're not talking the actual Saturday where the unfortunate time you've discovered your mother. You're talking a week later?
Yes, 7 days after that.
So was that a family discussion as to whether or not you would do it on the Tuesday or the Saturday?
Yes.
And then the decision to have the funeral in and I'm going to hack the town again, Springville.
Yes.
Is that the name of the town again?
Yep, Springville.
Spring Creek, Springville. I'm going to mess this up, so please forgive me. So the decision to have it in Springville, was that also a family discussion?
Yes.
And the decision was made for Springville as opposed to Rexburg. Why?
My mother had lived in Springville far longer than she had lived in Rexburg, and her family still lived there. And there was a family plot in the cemetery, so it just seemed like the natural decision to bury her there.
Okay. I want to go back a little bit about the outdoors and your mother's participation in the outdoor activities around the property. Can you elaborate a little bit about what your mother's primary interest and role was in terms of the outdoors?
She loved to nurture things, so taking care of animals and gardening and growing plants. She really wanted to have a strawberry patch and raspberries. She liked cute little critters like ducks and chickens and rabbits, and she would take care of them.
Now, in terms of managing the pet cemetery, was that your father's role or your mother's role to manage that?
My mother's.
Okay, and she was the one primarily responsible?
Yes.
So your father didn't necessarily go there and participate in anything with the pet cemetery. Would that be fair?
Yes, that's fair.
Okay. So anything that changed or anything that was modified in terms of the pet cemetery, would your mother be aware of it?
She would be aware.
Okay. Okay. And you recall that you've seen some evidence, actually the news, it's been all over the news, about an email that your father sent to your mother on September 9th, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Pryor, quick sidebar, please. All right, Mr. Pryor, please continue.
You recall reading an email on September 9th about shooting some raccoons and burying it in the pet cemetery. Is that correct?
It was a text message, I believe. But yes, I did.
Would it be unusual for your father to send your mother a message if he was involved in the something involving the pet cemetery?
Objection, Your Honor. May I voir dire an objection?
You may.
Miss Murray, did your parents tell you about every message they ever sent each other?
No,
Did you look at their phone records routinely?
no,
Did you look through their phones routinely?
no.
Your Honor, this would call for speculation. I'm going to object.
Sustained.
Okay. Again, it was your mother's primary responsibility to manage the pet cemetery, correct?
Yes.
And it would be if your father were to do something in the pet cemetery, would it be unusual for your father to have to let your mother know that he was doing something?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Sustained.
I'll move on, Judge. You mentioned that you lived kitty corner to the your dad's house. Is that correct?
Yes.
And has there been occasions when you folks have also encountered issues with animals on the property?
Yes.
And in some of those instances, were those animals buried as a result of being shot
Yes.
on your property?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have any knowledge about animals being shot on your dad's property as a result of issues with either livestock or otherwise?
Yes.
Okay. And some of the animals that were on your father's property at the time, can you go through the list of different type of animals that were on your father's property at that time?
There were a lot of cats. We live right by a busy highway. And so all throughout, there's stray cats that get hit, and my mother would feel bad for them. And they weren't even our cat, and they'd get buried. And some pet dogs, raccoons, skunks, rabbits, ducks, chickens, sometimes sparrows even too.
Okay. And your mother was a kind and considerate person.
Yes.
And she felt that that was the reason for why she erected the pet cemetery. Is that correct?
Even if it was a pest animal, she didn't want them to be disrespected.
Now, I noticed that when you ran off the laundry list of animals, that during the time period of, let's start with the beginning of November or beginning of 2019 through at the time when your father was accused of this, are you aware of whether or not your father owned a dog?
My father did not own a dog. He does not like dogs.
So there was no dog on the property at that point. Is that correct?
Correct.
That they owned.
Oh, that they owned, yes.
You guys had a dog across the street, right?
We did.
Okay. And you don't know whether Regan Price and her family had dogs, right?
They sometimes have, but I wasn't sure at that time if they did.
I want to talk to you a little bit about your feelings about law enforcement in this case. And there's been some mention previously about your, at least indicating that you had some difficulty with law enforcement. Can you explain that to me?
Yes, when I first, I heard from Garth that a detective had come in.
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Okay, you can't say what Garth told you, but I want to talk about your personal experiences in dealing with law enforcement and how you felt about that.
I was aware of an event that had happened with my brother, and I wanted to learn more about it. So I contacted the same detective that had talked to him.
Now, in an instant, was it that same detective who talked to you about the exhumation of your mother?
Yes.
And who was that detective?
Detective Hope.
Now, do you recall when you had that discussion about the exhumation of your mother?
December 13th, 2019.
Okay. And at that time, was it your indication that your mother had not been exhumed?
Yes, I thought she was resting in peace, just like we left her.
Okay. And was the subject of the discussion with Officer Hope that your mother in the future would be exhumed?
But he said it had already happened.
Okay. And was that the first time you heard about it?
Yes.
And if you need to take a break, you tell me. Okay.
Okay.
At any time prior to your mother being exhumed, did anybody from law enforcement ever tell you that your mother was being exhumed?
No.
Did you ever hear from your mother's family in Springville that they were going to exhume your mother from the ground?
No, nobody knew.
Okay. And to your knowledge, the amount of time, do you have any information as to the amount of time from the minute they started the exhumation to when she was placed back in her grave? How much period of time that was?
At the time, I didn't know.
Okay. Were you ever misled about whether there was going to be an exhumation or not after the exhumation took place?
No,
You were never misled?
I don't understand the question.
Okay. Did an officer ever tell you that they were going to do an exhumation even though it had already occurred?
Yes,
Who was that?
Detective Hope.
Okay. At any time, did the events that led up to your father's arrest cause you to have concern about law enforcement?
Yes.
What kind of concerns did you have with law enforcement?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Sustained.
Did you feel like you were at any time under scrutiny as part of this case?
Yes.
What sort of situations was it that felt that you were placed under scrutiny?
Any interaction I had with law enforcement.
Okay, was there an occasion at a gym that caused you particular concern?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Overruled.
Was there a particular situation at a gym that caused you particular concern?
Yes.
What was that situation?
I went to exercise with my sister-in-law
Who
and
was the sister-in-law?
Michaela Daybell,
Okay, that would be who's,
my brother Seth's wife.
okay. I can't keep all of you straight. I'm sorry. And then what transpired at that point? What did you observe?
We were in a section of the gym with lightweight dumbbells, and Detective Hermosillo came and started exercising near us. And it seemed like a part of the gym that would have been too easy for him, and he stood closer to us than felt comfortable.
Objection, Your Honor, this is calling for speculation.
Judge, she's describing an event, not speculating about anything.
It's overruled.
Go ahead.
He was standing closer to us than felt comfortable, and it felt like he was trying to listen in on our conversation.
Were there other occasions, either at church or otherwise, where you felt that people were maybe judging you?
Yes.
Give me an example.
I had a detective from Madison County confront me in the hallway at church.
Okay. And was that an uncomfortable situation?
It was really uncomfortable, and I haven't attended that congregation since.
And was that a situation where your role at the church was what at the time?
I was asked to help teach young children in the nursery. And my daughter was in that class, so I was really excited too.
Did this particular detective have some sort of authority over the church or a position in the church that allowed him to dictate whether you were schooling young children or not?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Sustained.
And Judge, if I could have just a moment, please.
You may.
Did you have an occasion to meet with that same Detective Hope at your school?
Yes.
Do you recall when that was?
I only met with him one time.
Okay. Do you recall what the nature of that conversation was?
The idea was I wanted to ask him what was going on, why he was contacting members of my family.
In what regard?
He was asking where my dad was, and we gave him my dad's phone number and told him he was in Hawaii, but they said that they had no way of contacting him. That seemed untrue.
Because you had previously provided that phone
We
information?
provided contact information, and they said he was in hiding, but we told them where he was
And when do you recall telling them where your dad was in Hawaii?
at that meeting.
Okay. So a suggestion that you felt that the suggestion that they weren't able to locate your dad and that he was somehow running or hiding was inaccurate?
Yes.
Okay. I want to talk to you about the day that you were present for your dad being arrested. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Do you know the day that was?
June 9th.
Okay. And on that particular day, we've previously seen some videotape of you approaching your father, and it was an emotional situation. Do you recall that?
Yes.
I want to talk to you a little bit about how the car was positioned in relation to the property, your father's property.
It was parked parallel on the side of the road,
What road was that? Do you recall?
200 north.
Okay. So if the car was pointed towards Salem Highway, the nose of it, correct?
Yes,
And the rear was parked down 200, correct?
yes,
So it was pulled over on the side of the road. If someone were to look out the right side of the car window, what would you be looking at?
the house.
If someone were to be looking and turning and looking behind the seat, back towards the trunk or that corner, what would they be looking at?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Overruled.
What would they be looking at?
Whatever was behind the car.
It wouldn't be by turning around and looking back, you wouldn't be looking at the property, would you?
No,
Okay. Now, there was an occasion that during this investigation of your father's property, that your father was over at your home that day. Is that correct?
yes,
And did you have a discussion with your father about what he was intending to do?
yes,
Did you have an occasion to observe him leave the house?
yes,
Did he leave the house at that time? And I'm going to use a phrase, flee the scene?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Did you observe your father racing off at a high rate of speed once he left the house?
but the speed limit's 50 miles per hour. I saw him drive that speed.
Okay, and he left the house and did it appear to you that he was in a hurry?
No,
Okay. Now you have a recollection of who he was going to see, correct?
yes,
Yeah. And who was he going to see?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Okay. Was there a discussion with you being present that he was going to visit a lawyer?
yes,
Objection, Your Honor, move to strike, calls for hearsay, leading.
Sustained, and I'll strike the question, and the jury disregard that question.
But in any event, your father was not.
Objection, Your Honor, this is going to call for speculation.
I agree, and it's leading, so sustained.
Okay. Did you observe your father speeding off from the house on the day of June 9th?
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
Sustained.
And again, Judge, if I could have a minute. On the day of your mother's funeral, how would you describe your father's reaction?
typical for any grieving Latter-day Saint husband.
What does that mean?
He cried. He also seemed happy at moments.
And when you say typical, what do you mean? Is that typical?
Latter-day Saints believe that we will be resurrected and be with our families forever. So a funeral isn't saying goodbye forever. It's a see you later. It's a break.
Okay. So would it be fair to say that he had mixed emotions, both positive and negative emotions?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Overruled.
Would it be fair to say that he had mixed emotions?
Yes.
Judge, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Pryor. All right, Ms. Blake, cross-examination.
Miss Murray, is it okay if I call you Miss Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Pryor started off saying that he told you to tell the truth here today. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And you said you'd met with Mr. Pryor maybe 3 times.
That I recall.
You've been talking with your dad almost daily over the last several years, correct?
Yes.
Lots of conversations with your dad.
Yes.
Do you recall your dad in early June of 2020 telling you not to cooperate with law enforcement?
I don't remember him saying that.
You don't remember a phone call in which he relayed to you, probably better if you just don't cooperate?
I don't remember that.
Do you remember then telling the FBI you were not going to meet with them anymore?
I chose not to do that because of counsel from another attorney.
But it was after having that conversation with your dad, correct?
No.
Was it after June 9th of 2020 that you told him that?
Yes.
After June 10th of 2020 that you told him that?
I don't remember.
Do you recall visiting with your dad as well?
Yes.
Do you recall a visit on around November 23rd of last year?
Not specifically.
Do you recall having a visit where you and your dad talked about that 5K race?
Yes.
And do you recall your dad telling you that you might want to say certain things?
No.
You don't recall that?
No.
Do you recall then talking about a race in 2013?
Yes.
You recall your dad saying, once again, maybe say that?
No.
Do you recall your dad talking to you about the one that exercised with you at Zumba that Tammy wasn't able to keep up? She would just make up her own moves. Do you recall your dad telling you that?
No.
But you've had a lot of visits with your dad.
Yes.
So it may be hard to remember everything he's told you.
He's never told me to say anything.
So you don't recall him telling you those things.
No.
You talked about you were worried about your mom's health.
Yes.
But your mom went to a doctor, right? She'd been there for a wrist recently.
Just for the wrist.
Surprised you to learn that no mention of current anemia in her medical records?
Because she hadn't been to the doctor since 2017.
When did your mom go to the doctor for a wrist?
In 2019. That's
Okay.
a 2-year gap.
You just answer the question. So when did your mom go for her wrist?
In 2019.
Her medical records say nothing about current anemia. Does that surprise you?
Yes.
Her medical records say nothing about sleep apnea, correct?
I don't know.
Would it surprise you that they don't say anything about sleep apnea?
No.
Talked about your mom going to bed early. Again, what time did you say she'd go to bed?
It varied depending on the day, but 5, 6, 7 o'clock.
Were you over at the residence when she'd go to bed?
Usually,
Would you go in and visit with her?
if she was awake.
Would you go watch her while she was in bed?
No.
So you don't know what she did when she went to bed. Fair to say?
Fair.
So you don't know what she would do with the Fitbit when she went to bed, right?
I watched her do it several times.
Several times. You didn't watch her nightly go to bed.
I did not.
You say your mom went to bed that early, 6, 7 at the latest. Is that your recollection?
On some nights, she probably stayed up later.
How much later?
I don't know.
Because you weren't there, right?
Correct?
So surprise you to learn that on October 18th, there was activity on her phone at 10:22 p.m.
No.
That's a lot later than 7.
She had been sick that night. I stay up later when I'm sick and have just thrown up as well.
Were you there that night?
No.
Did you see her throw up?
No.
So you don't know.
Nope.
You only know what you were told.
Yes.
You were asked about this book fair. And you talked about your mom carrying a heavy box. Do you recall that?
Yes.
But your mom was carrying the box, right?
Yes.
So she was able to carry a box,
Barely.
but she was doing it, correct?
Yes.
You were asked about who drives the Dodge Dakota. Do you recall that question?
Yes.
Any reason why your husband would have referred to the truck keys as your mother's?
They had 2 sets, and the set that my husband used was my mom's.
Any reason why he would have to get those keys from your mom?
Yes.
Why was that?
He wanted to borrow the truck to work potato harvest, and she was the closest of my 2 parents to him.
So they both had keys to it,
Yes.
both access it,
Yes.
both could drive it.
Yes.
You talked about your mom playing on the Wii. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And what kind of game was that again?
An exercise game.
Did you see her do that a lot?
In 2018 and earlier.
Was that something that she enjoyed?
Yes.
Fair to say your mom enjoyed physical activity?
She enjoyed video games.
And when you say video games, some of them, you described the Wii. Were there other types of video games your mom liked?
Yes.
And what were those?
Farming simulations, Pokemon.
Would she play those on her phone? Do you know?
Yes, and other handheld devices.
And then she liked to play the Wii as well.
Periodically.
And she took self-defense classes.
Not formal classes. It was with our church.
But was that a voluntary thing?
Yes.
So she wanted to go do that.
Yes.
And that's physical activity.
Yes.
She wanted to participate in Zumba, correct?
Yes.
She wanted to do clogging.
Yes.
She was training for a 5K.
No.
You say she wasn't training for a 5K.
She was not training for a 5K.
Would it surprise you that other people said she was?
No.
We talked earlier a little bit. You weren't privy to all your mom and dad's communications, right?
No.
You weren't privy to all your mom's conversations that she'd have with people, correct?
Correct.
So at school, she may have conversations when you weren't around, right?
Yes.
She may tell people things that you have no idea she told them, right?
Yes.
And counsel talked to you about an insurance policy that was increased. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And you said your mom did that on her own.
Yes.
Why was your dad's signature on the application?
I think she took out insurance on him.
Your Honor, may I be handed State's Exhibit 151?
Yes,
And Your Honor, may I ask that the witness be shown this exhibit?
you may. I'll have the marshal please retrieve that.
And I don't know if counsel needs to see this as well.
I'm good, Judge. Thank you. I'm good. No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Miss Murray, if you can just look that over. Did you have a chance to look that over?
Yes.
Do you see on the back page whose signatures were there?
Yes.
And whose are those?
It says employee's signature, Tamara M. Daybell. Spouse's signature of applying for coverage, Chad G. Daybell.
And do you see dates by those?
9/8/19.
Is it the same date on both signatures?
Yes.
And can you see that that's only insurance for your mother?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I be handed that exhibit?
Yes, I'll have the bailiff retrieve that, please.
And permission to publish from the Elmo.
You may publish.
And Miss Murray, can you see which company this is through?
Yes.
And what company is that?
Life map.
And then do you see kind of towards the bottom a box marked with an amount?
Yes.
And what is that box?
80,000.
And then is this back page the page you were just looking at?
Yes.
And Miss Marie, I believe you indicated that your parents would share their passwords with each other.
Yes.
So is it fair to say that they could access each other's accounts?
Yes.
So your dad could delete emails or block contacts on your mom's account?
If he knew how.
And you were asked about whether or not your mom was familiar with paintball guns. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And who is Garth Daybell?
Garth is my older brother.
Would it surprise you to learn or to hear Garth say that she wasn't familiar with paintball guns?
I don't think he said that.
Would it surprise you if he did?
Yeah, that would surprise me.
Did you ever shoot paintball guns with your mom?
No.
Ever see your mom with a paintball gun?
No.
Ever see your mom with a rifle?
No.
Ever see your mom with an assault rifle?
No.
And counsel talked to you about when you learned your mother had been exhumed. Again, do you recall approximately when you learned that?
Yes.
And when was that again?
December 13th.
And you talked about a meeting that you had with Detective Hope. Is it that same meeting?
Yes.
And do you recall at that meeting, Detective Hope inquiring of you or letting you know that they were still concerned with the whereabouts of JJ Vallow?
Yes.
Do you recall him telling you that they were still looking for him?
Yes.
You talked about seeing Detective Hermosillo at the gym sometime. Do you recall approximately when that was?
It was after my dad had been arrested, so sometime after 2020 or during that year.
And when you met with Detective Hope, do you recall him telling you that all they wanted to see was JJ was safe and find out where he was located?
Yes.
Do you recall indicating that you were in contact with your dad at that time?
Yes.
Did you ever ask your dad where JJ Vallow was?
Yes.
What did he tell you?
He told me that he was in a safe place.
Did you ever ask your dad where Tylee Ryan was?
Yes.
What did he tell you?
In a safe place.
Do you know where JJ and Tylee were found?
Yes.
Where?
In the backyard
Of whose property?
of my dad's property.
You indicated that you live kitty corner to your parents, or that you did live kitty corner to your parents' residence. Is that right?
Yes, I used to.
What direction was that from your parents' residence?
It was towards Rexburg, which I believe is to the southwest.
And you indicated that on September 8th, you were searching for southwest wind.
Yes.
So you happened to be searching for southwest wind the last day Tylee Ryan was seen alive?
Yes.
The day before Alex Cox or a device associated with him was on your dad's property.
Yes.
The day before your dad sent your mom a message about shooting a raccoon and burning limbs on that property.
Yes.
We talked about your dad, some of the things that he would teach you, including light and dark. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Have you tried to discern light and dark?
Yes.
Did your dad ever teach you about zombies?
No.
Did he ever teach you about castings?
Yes.
And I think you talked about your mom doing something like that.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Would you qualify that as a casting?
What my mother would do?
Yes.
Yes.
And you said that it helped you.
Yes.
Are you still alive?
Yes.
Did your dad teach you about multi-creations?
Yes.
You said he didn't teach you about zombies.
Yes.
I think you said your dad was passionate and he enjoyed talking about his views.
Yes.
Your dad ever talked to you about death percentages?
Yes.
Did your dad ever talk to you about people being close to death?
Yes.
Do you recall any specific people your dad talked to you about being close to death?
Yes.
And who was that?
Well, my mom was one of the people, but it was not death so much as how connected your spirit was to your body. My mom would feel lightheaded and say she didn't feel quite connected to herself, and they would reconnect her spirit to her body.
When your dad would talk to you about castings, did he explain to you anything about the body having to die?
No.
Explain anything to you about the body having to be destroyed?
No.
And again, didn't talk to you about zombies.
No.
Were you privy to all your dad's conversations with people?
No.
But your dad liked to share his views, correct?
Yes.
Your dad ever talked to you about Alex Cox?
No.
Did your dad ever talk to you about Lori Vallow before your mom passed away?
No.
So you don't know what he talked to Lori and Alex about.
I don't.
And counsel talked to you about some of the books your dad writes. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Have you read a lot of his books?
All of them.
So are you aware in his autobiography that he indicates the visions in his books are true? Things
Ye-
that he's seen?
Yes.
And is it fair to say were they sold at religious bookstores?
Yes.
So some people may have put more stock into them.
Yes.
And counsel talked to you about priesthood blessings a little bit. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And I think you made the statement, a man living the covenants would be worthy or could give a priesthood blessing.
Yes.
Is committing adultery living the covenants?
No.
When did you learn that your dad was having an affair with Lori Vallow?
After he was arrested.
Was it quite a while after he was arrested?
Well, I heard about things in the news after Lori was arrested in February of 2020, but I learned more after he was arrested very shortly after. Once again, the news.
Do you recall participating in an interview where you indicated that you didn't believe he'd had a physical affair?
Yes.
And that was about sometime in 2021?
Yes.
Did you know of the physical affair at that point?
No.
So it was sometime after that you learned of the physical affair?
Yes.
And then I do want to talk to you a little bit about the day that your mom passed away. Were you present at the residence when 911 was first called?
No.
When you arrived at the residence, who else was there?
My father, my older brother Garth, my husband, sheriff's deputy. There may have been two, but I remember one that walked with me from my house. And the coroner was, I think, arriving the same time that I was. I can't remember if she was there before me or not.
Is it fair to say your dad had conversations possibly outside of your presence?
Yes.
Were you there when your dad was providing your mom's medical history to Deputy Greenalch, the officer?
Yes.
Were you there when he provided it to Deputy Coroner Cammie Wilmore?
Yes.
And were you there when he provided it to Coroner Brenda Dye?
Yes.
Did you provide any statements about your mom's health at that time?
I don't remember.
You said that you had serious concerns about her health though, right?
Yes.
But you don't remember if you said anything.
She wasn't talking to me, so I didn't answer her.
At any point, did you reach out to law enforcement to tell them about any concerns you had about your mom's medical conditions?
It wasn't a crime, so no.
You were asked about when your mom was exhumed. Did you know there was going to be an autopsy?
I assumed there would be.
Did you reach out to anyone then to let them know of your concerns?
Family members.
Did you reach out to law enforcement?
No, I didn't feel like they would help me since they were the ones conducting it.
But you didn't reach out to them with any concerns?
No.
And you said you didn't want your mom to get an autopsy. Is that correct?
Correct.
Once you learned she'd had one, did you want to see the results?
I did.
Do you recall law enforcement coming to meet with you and you telling them, nope, I don't want to know?
I didn't say that.
Do you recall telling them you didn't want to know?
I don't recall that, so no.
Do you recall not being willing to have them share with you the results of the autopsy?
Judge asked and answered. It's just in a variety of different ways.
Overruled.
Do you recall indicating you did not want to sit down or that you were unwilling to sit down and have them share the autopsy results with you?
No,
You don't recall that.
that's not what I said.
What did you say?
I told them I didn't want to interview with them. I wanted to see the results, and I did not want to discuss it with them.
And do you recall them indicating you wouldn't have to do an interview? They were just going to share the results with you.
They never said that.
Did you, in fact, decline to see the autopsy?
No, they never offered to let me see it without interviewing with them.
So you were unwilling to sit down with law enforcement.
In that instance, yes.
I think you talked about the morning of your mom's passing. It was difficult to see your dad not in control and in charge.
Yes.
Was it pretty common for your dad to be in control and in charge?
Yes, as the patriarch of our home.
And you were asked about how your dad seemed when your mom passed away. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Did your dad ever share with you a text to Lori
No.
that was sent on less than 24 hours after your mother's passing on October 20th of 2019?
My dad didn't share text messages with me.
So would it surprise you to learn that your dad texted that he was sad, but not for the reasons everyone thought?
Well, when I
The
first,
yes or no?
Oh.
Would it surprise you to learn that?
No.
And counsel talked to you about the events of June 9th of 2020. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And do you recall speaking with your dad on that morning?
Yes.
And Your Honor, I'm going to ask to be handed State's Exhibit 300.
Very well. Okay. Ms. Blake, if you could make some identification in the record before publishing so we can ensure what is being published.
Yes, Your Honor. And it was indicated that there may be an A and B, so I want to verify before publication as well that this is the correct one.
All right. Thank you.
Sorry if I may have just a moment. And Your Honor, this is 300A. It is the body cam video from Detective Wheeler that was previously admitted.
Very well. Thank you, Ms. Blake.
And I would ask permission to publish from approximately minute 1 hour, 2 minutes, 44 seconds.
Okay.
Sorry, just another moment.
All right, everyone. If you'd like, we could take a stand up, not leave, but stand up break.
Thank you. For some reason, it did not like my computer today. So now starting from 1 hour, 2 minutes, 56 seconds.
Dr. Chad, just stay here with her. So you understand why I have to do that?
Yeah.
So you just stay here with them. Okay.
Hi. They said I could talk with you and I didn't want you to be alone.
Thank you.
I love you so much.
Glad you came over.
I thought they had taken you downtown already.
I got them out to the 300 county line.
I saw it as soon as you left. They chased you down and then they came back.
Ron,
Ron?
just concerning the car. Huh? I know
I
they,
asked him
oh,
about
okay.
it.
What's that? Oh, just about the car. Oh, we'll take care of the car. We're gonna take it. Is she able
And we
to
will-
get it?
Yeah, you can do that. We may have to go through the car if you're arrested in it,
Right.
those things we gotta do, but then she can
She can have her bananas and her,
I gave him
First.
food.
we'll try to get a car before it's spoiled.
You can eat it.
so Eric, or Ron, so like my wallet, will that be able for her to pick up, or could I turn it over to her right now?
Is that in the car, is that here?
It's right here.
That's it's up to you. I don't see, can I look through it? Just make
Sure.
They're going to get marked.
Lisa?
No,
Oh.
guard.
Is there anything that you're gonna need in that?
Well, she'll be running my finances, I suppose, so that has a little money on it. You could,
Okay, so these are credit cards, so you're good if she just takes them,
yeah.
correct?
In the middle drawer on the left side in Mark's room, there's about $9,000 in 2 white envelopes.
Okay.
So get that. Yeah, so we'll talk more about car payments and stuff, but you have that password.
I do.
I believe the Hawaiian,
That's this one.
First Hawaiian Bank, if you use that same password for this account, it's Chad Daybell. That's what else is in the producer there. This has nothing on it. It's like $6. That has to go away. So this, okay, in that same drawer is a piece of this that would fit in here, and it's got the company card, company business card, and so just make sure you get that.
And this is all in Mark's room.
Yeah, I put that in there. There's a like a pamphlet with a guy who's sitting in a car. It's for the Wells Fargo auto loan.
That's the loan that they but not.
Yeah, and so that we'll talk about. So this has, if you go to Telmate, this is the card that's used.
Okay.
And so all you really do, you could probably just sign in as Chad.Daybell or start your own.
I have an account that I've been talking with Lori on.
Okay, but you could use this
To
card,
add money.
yeah, and to her if needed.
Okay.
So, yeah, she'll need to still have commissary money. Usually puts 30 a week in there, so. And you can probably talk to her too.
Okay.
Mhm. I'm sorry.
I love you so much.
Cooperate with them as much as you feel. I mean,
They've been kind to us today. I texted John Pryor, so he has my number. He said thank you.
okay. a lot of the company stuff that pays for the house should just auto pay still out of that company account. I left 5,000 in there.
Okay,
If you need some, come find me.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions you have?
I think, well, it sounds like you're not gonna be out. in a little
Right.
while. So I think my landlord texted me just to feel bad for me. I think I'm gonna come over here.
That's what I needed you to say, because, yeah, you and Joe and whatever Mark wants to do, he should stay with either you
I'll
or me.
take care of Mark. I'll take care of Lee. That's the card. I will, Dad. I'll take care of me. We'll take care of you the best we can. Sorry to interrupt.
So keep paying the mortgage out of the company.
Okay,
No, you can probably set it up though.
okay.
I'm trying to, it's Wells Fargo. In that same pamphlet, remember the password.
I'll look,
But-
but I've had a lot of success with mom stuff. Just saying, will you help me? My mom died. I'm pretty sure. Will you help me? My dad's in jail. Has the same.
It should be paid through July 1st.
Okay,
And I think the car is paid through July 15th. So you shouldn't have any bills to worry about. Yeah, I'm not coming back. So all that stuff that's in the baby room is Lori's and mine. The suitcases you'll see in the box, just put it in the garage, I guess, after.
store it. See what happens.
You guys can, yeah, take that mattress from upstairs, I guess, do what you want, put the books back on the shelf. We're gonna make it through. I'm glad we could talk. I'm glad they let you come over.
I started crying and Lieutenant Ball went, do you want to talk to him? And like, can I? He said, he's just over there. Like, oh, that changes things. So you probably saw us out there.
Yeah, I was watching. So, hopefully things will slow down for you guys and get left alone. But yeah, they'll let you move out of there. You just get over here. You know, get gosh,
Well, I
still feel better.
I would be moving soon. That's what the spirit was telling me, but I didn't know how it'll. I felt like I needed to learn more,
Hmm.
and now I get it.
So yeah, this is essentially the house, and we'll talk to John Pryor about the financial arrangement, but you should be fine for a while.
I think long enough to get on our feet.
And stopping at 11154. Do you recall this conversation with your dad?
Yes.
And when you first walked up, your dad didn't ask you if you knew why he was arrested, did he?
No.
Do you recall a conversation in there about moving a mattress from upstairs and putting the books on the shelves or something along those?
Yes.
Where was the upstairs?
It was in the top of the cozy cone.
So there was a mattress in there?
He had just barely put it there. Typically, no one lived up there. It's like the one time of year that the temperature actually cooperated. There just wasn't room at the house. There's a lot of people living there at the time.
So there was an upstairs that had room for a mattress though.
Yeah.
And there was some talk in there about some cash that he wanted you to have. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And he talked to you about how to pay the mortgage
Yes.
and talked to you about letting you take the car.
Yes.
And prior to that, or around the same time, do you recall him making an $8,000 deposit into your account?
Yes.
Do you recall conversation that day about a body being located?
Yes.
And do you recall then a conversation about a second body being looked for?
A conversation with my dad?
Yes.
Yes.
Whose bodies were those?
Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow.
I have nothing further.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Pryor, redirect. 151. Okay, we've got that. We'll have it presented.
Counsel, do you want this? I can keep it if you'd like. No? No, sure. Thank you. And Judge, may I publish?
Yes.
Thank you. On the Elmo. Emma, I'm looking at the life map insurance. And is that the one you talked about with Taylor Ballard?
Yes.
You previously testified that your dad would sign if he was also applying for coverage. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Could you do me a favor under your dad's do you recognize which one is your dad's signature there?
Yes.
Second one, right?
Yes.
Below your mom's. And would you read starting with spouse's signature?
Spouse's signature if applying for coverage.
And what did you understand that to mean?
Either my dad was applying for coverage or my mom didn't read the directions.
Okay. But it was your understanding at the time that the decision and the amount of coverage was a decision your mother made at that time, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, the prosecuting attorney, Miss Blake, talked to you about whether your dad discussed with you where the children were, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Was there ever a discussion with your dad that Lori Vallow was concealing the location of the children from everyone?
Yes.
And as part of that, your dad never knew where the children were. Is that correct?
Yes.
What he did know is that Ms. Vallow had indicated to him that the children were safe.
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay and speculation.
Well, it's untimely, overruled.
Okay. So is it your understanding that your dad never knew where the children were, but only that they were safe?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for hearsay and speculation.
Sustained.
Okay. I want to talk lastly about one other subject that the prosecuting attorney brought up. She mentioned to you that why you never brought up an issue about your mother getting an autopsy. Do you recall the day that your mother was exhumed?
I think it was December 11th.
Okay. And then the first time you learned about an autopsy and that your mother had been dug out of the ground would have been on what day?
December 13th.
So do you think that it would have been practical for you after they conducted the autopsy and dug your mother out of the ground to file an objection or complain?
It was already completed.
Yeah. I have nothing else, Judge. Thank you.
All right. I will conclude the testimony of this witness then. Thank you for appearing. You can go ahead and step down. Can she be released from any subpoena, counsel?
Judge, in the event something comes up during the testimony, I'd like to keep her under subpoena at this point.
Okay, and that's fine. You are still under subpoena, so you may be subject to return. You're not subject to the court's order on exclusions, so you can talk to counsel if you have any questions about that. Thank you for appearing again. My preference would be to get started with another witness before we take lunch, if we could, since we have about 20 minutes. Is that all right, Mr. Pryor?
Yes, Your Honor. It would be Garth Daybell, Judge.
Okay, we'll have the defense call the next witness then.
Solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Thank you.
All right, you can go ahead and inquire.
Would you state your name, spell your last name for the record for me, please?
Garth Daybell, Daybell.
Okay. And Garth, can you tell me what your relationship is to Chad over there to my left?
Chad is my father.
Okay. And can you tell me how many brothers and sisters you have?
I have 4 brothers and sisters. I'm the oldest, and then 2 brothers, 2 sisters.
Okay. Now, I want to start out by saying that at the time your mother had passed away, and if at any time, Garth, you need to take a break or have a drink of water, please tell me, okay? At the time your mother passed away, who was living in your dad and mom's home?
So in my parents' home, it was my dad, my mom, and me.
Okay. And in terms of the sleeping arrangements, how were the bedrooms aligned in that house?
So at the end of a hallway, there was, on the left would have been my bedroom, and on the right across the hall would have been my parents' bedroom.
Okay. And if you were to estimate, and you only have to estimate, it doesn't have to be scientific, how far would you estimate is the distance between the bed you were sleeping in the one bedroom and the bed that your mother and father shared in terms of feet?
So I would estimate about 20 feet between the 2 beds.
Okay. Now I'm going to switch around a little bit and go on a couple of other different topics. So please bear with me. Okay. There is a method to this madness, I guess. But do you have a recollection? And I want to say prior to 2000, not John Pryor, but prior to 2017, who was driving the Dodge Dakota?
Prior to 2017 was my dad.
Okay. And then after 2017, was your dad still driving the Dodge Dakota?
He was not.
Okay. You're sure about that?
I am sure.
Okay. Who was driving the Dodge Dakota?
It'd be my mom.
Okay. Okay. And she was primarily the one driving that?
Oh, I think I have it backwards.
Well, that's what I want to ask you, and I want to make sure that you're being accurate about this. So prior, and maybe I confused you by doing that. At the time of your mother's death, do you know which vehicle your dad was driving?
My dad was driving the Dodge Dakota.
Okay. And is there a reason why are you nervous?
I am.
Okay. Okay. Do you share your father's introvert personality?
I do. I consider myself pretty shy.
Okay. So at the time, and I'm going to go back, and this is prior, meaning before 2017. Again, do you know who was driving the Dodge Dakota?
But before 2017, it would have been my mom.
Okay. And then do you have a reason as to why that changed? Do you recall?
If I recall, it had something to do with car troubles.
Okay. And then your mother started driving a different vehicle?
She started driving an Equinox.
Okay. And was that her primary vehicle?
After 2017, yes.
Okay. But there were occasions when they switched off. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. But primarily your father would be the one seen in the Dodge Dakota, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Now, I want to talk about the summer of 2019 and in regards to raccoons. What do you recall about that summer in regards to raccoons?
That summer, I was testing out a new tent and out in the backfield, and I heard a rustling. And I went out and I looked up into the tree, and there was a raccoon there. And so I ran inside and I told my dad, there's a raccoon. And it was very close to where our rabbits were being kept. And so I told him, and we went out. He grabbed the shotgun and he shot the raccoon.
And was that in the evening? Was that during the day? When was that?
It was about 10 at night.
Okay, so an evening.
Yeah.
Okay. Was it exclusive that you would only see raccoons at night, or were there occasions when you would see them in the morning or the afternoon?
I saw them at night, except for when we had trapped them.
Okay. And you had trapped them during the day?
Mm-hmm.
When they were raiding what were they raiding?
The rabbit hutch, or it was a rabbit pen. We had set up a fence.
Okay. So they would come in during the day to go after your rabbit food or rabbits?
The food, and we were worried they would go after the rabbits eventually too.
Okay. Did you have an occasion to catch other raccoons during the summer of 2019?
We did.
How many other raccoons did you catch during the summer of 2019?
It was 3 or 4, if I remember.
And do you have a recollection of approximately where on the property those were buried?
We typically buried them in the compost heap behind the silver shed.
Okay. Were there other animals that were buried in a different place on the property?
Yes.
And where would those other animals be buried?
Animals that were more of pets, we would bury out near a raspberry patch.
Okay. So it would be unusual for your father to put a raccoon in the raspberry patch then. Would that be fair?
Yes.
Okay. So would he typically tell your mother if he did something like that?
Yes.
Okay. Was the silver, and what did you call it? The behind the what?
Silver shed.
The silver shed. Was that getting full at some point?
The shed was pretty, or you mean the
ground around the shed is where you were putting them in the compost?
I would think so. There was a few animals in there.
Well, more than a few, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So at some point you also set traps for the raccoons. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Who did you get the traps from?
Our neighbor, Matt Price.
Okay. And at some point, was there issues with the operation of that trap?
Sometimes they could get in and get the food without the trap activating.
Okay. Okay. Now, and when that happened, would that mean the door wouldn't close, or what would go on there?
So the door would remain open, but the food would disappear.
Okay. And was that happening throughout the summer?
It was.
Okay. And eventually, did you catch that big raccoon?
There were so many, I don't remember.
Okay. And at some point,
I apologize to interrupt. There's just an issue I want to bring up briefly on a sidebar here. All right. Thank you, counsel. The court had that quick sidebar. It was nothing to do with any question or any impropriety of a question or objection or anything like that. It was simply a matter of management of witnesses in the case. And so because the issue came up and we need to address that briefly, and given the timing, Mr. Pryor, I think it would be good to just break for lunch, then we can sort that out and you can continue with direct.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and take the lunch recess. We'll take an hour. So if we can come back on just before 1 o'clock, that will be when we'll resume. Thank you.
And Mr. Daybell, are to be advised not to talk about the case or meet with anybody regarding the case as well, okay?
Yeah, while you're under oath, don't discuss your testimony or talk to anybody else about how you're going to testify between now and when you return, please.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
All rise, please. All rise. District Court again, it says.
All right, thank you. Please be seated. All right, we can have the jurors brought in, please. Yeah, let's have the witness return to the stand first. Thank you. You may.
There's more to come in the trial of Chad Daybell. Press subscribe so you don't miss any of our continuing coverage right here from True Crime Today and the Hidden Killers podcast.